Alright, so this is the due regard video for Chapter 7, Volume 1, Chapter 7, video about due regard. Due regard is the use of, in context of vehicle operations, for when we drive. It's as a driver, we need to follow traffic laws and we need to drive with due regard. That was taught in the EMT school. That was taught in emergency vehicle operations courses. Drive with due regard. But due regard is a variety of things. It's a pretty broad term. It's vigilance. We're supposed to be good drivers when we're at work. Well, and in general, but especially we're supposed to set an example for the community. We have to follow the traffic laws. We shouldn't be speeding, especially excessively, especially without the use of lights and sirens. And we're not rolling stop signs. We're not gunning it off the stop or at green lights. I'm sorry. But when we are using emergency lights, it's defensive driving. That's the biggest thing, is due regard. It's stopping at stoplights. It's driving normally, but with higher vigilance and using lights and sirens. It's dangerous. Lights and sirens is one of the big causes for ambulance crashes and fire truck crashes and whatnot. Driving emergently is dangerous for us. It's dangerous for the public. And our job as a driver of that ambulance at that time is to protect yourself, the patient, your partner, if you have a patient, and the public. Lights and sirens in the use of fire and ambulances and crashes, there's been more injuries and worse injuries when crashes involve lights and sirens. It's been found in general. But even crashes are the biggest killer and injury of firefighters and EMS personnel. A few things to remember when we do drive lights and sirens and using these due regard. We're asking for the right of way. We don't automatically get the right of way. It allows us to go through stop signs and stop lights after we stop, after we clear the intersection. We're asking for other vehicles to yield. It also allows us to go into oncoming traffic to pass if we have to, due to traffic or whatnot. Things to remember: we don't automatically get the right of way. We're asking permission. Some states, you can't legally go over the speed limit. I think that is the way in Wisconsin, at least. One of our officers here in Plover was talking about that. We're not legally able to go over the speed limit. In some areas you can. Even then, you due regard. The last company I worked for, our policy was when driving emergent, you could not go over 10 miles an hour, 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. And if you're going in a 55 or higher, no speeding. It happened anyway. It's just the way it is. Many areas, especially here in Wisconsin, don't use opticons, so we do have to clear the intersections. Where I'm from in Illinois, most fire departments have opticons, so you can change the light to green before we go through it, which is a lot safer for us and the public, really. We should be slowing down even at green lights, being cautious. People still run red lights. When we go through a red light, we're coming to a complete stop. We have a pretty bad intersection here in Plover, and it's hard to see, and it's busy. It's Highway 54 and Plover Road, so we have to come to a complete stop before we go through that intersection, or we can get. I've been almost hit there. Same thing with stop signs. Yeah, you can probably roll it safely, especially in some areas. Seatbelt. You have to wear a seatbelt. You should wear a seatbelt no matter what. But as a driver, you also don't want to be using your phone. You don't want to be using the radio, GPS. Be vigilant on the road, as that's due regard. Being cautious. When driving lights and sirens, if you are in a crash, there's a good chance it will be your fault no matter what. Unless it's just blatant that it's not your fault. There's a better chance that you will be found at fault if you're driving lights and sirens. All right, let's see. Let's look at an article. I found an article. It was on EMS 1. It was about Marion County, Florida in late July. They had a vehicle had struck their ambulance while transporting a patient to the hospital. Lights and sirens from another vehicle accident. Medium-sized SUV struck the vehicle. Everyone was okay. The patient was taken in another ambulance. And the department actually put out on social media a few pictures of the ambulance. And they had asked everybody what they asked. They said in their tweet, Marion County First Fire Rescue urges drivers to be vigilant and yield to emergency vehicles. We were transporting a patient from a motor vehicle accident. Medic 66 was struck by a mid-sized SUV at the intersection. Utilizing your lights and sirens, Medic 6 cleared the intersection, proceeded through when they were struck on the passenger side door. Patient was immediately transferred to Medic 54 and transported to the hospital. 3 crew members were evaluated by EMS and had non-life-threatening injuries. If you see or hear sirens of emergency vehicles, please yield. Lives are dependent on it. I thought this was interesting, especially because yes, they did clear the intersection. Yes, they did take due regard, but we're still asking to yield. The public doesn't have to yield to us. You just should. So I think it was interesting that they came out on social media to remind us about this. I mean, it's not a bad thing. Just feel like a lot of places wouldn't. So props to them for doing that. But it's still something that they should be in due regard for. Maybe they didn't clear the intersection as well as they thought they did. I don't know. I wasn't there. The last thing is school buses. We still have to stop for school buses. If they're sitting there on a road and they have their red lights on, they have their stop sign out, they have their bar in front of them out, we have to stop for them, even if we're driving lights and sirens. There are a lot of cases where the school bus driver will put their stuff in and be like, yeah, go, But we are still secondary to school buses, and that's an important thing to remember. There's a big problem in the public with passing school buses like that. But again, we need to set the example, and we're here for the public. We're to help protect the public. So that's that.